Good morning and welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. No, you're not seeing double or deja vu. It's myself and the wonderful Sean Martin again. Sean, how are you?
I'm fine, Tony. Thanks for that.
And I do look as if I've just been dragged through our heads backwards, but this is my normal hairstyle. But there we go. So we'll crack on, Sean. It's looming ever closer back to domestic matters. And one thing that struck me, and I read before today, 3 o'clock Saturday kickoff, rarity, and it's also a sellout at Celtic Park. I mean, that's wonderful for the players, isn't it, and everybody, and the fans as well. That'll be something special tomorrow.
I think so. I mean, another sellout is great to hear, and I think, like you, I think the players will thrive off it. I think they've already thrived off the crowds when they've been there. I think they even just being at Parkhead, I think suits them, the bigger pitch and stuff. But as you say, it's not often that fans get to go to Parkhead at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, so I'm sure they'll make the most of it. And I'm sure that Ange Postecoglou will put out a team to entertain them as well.
Now, the two games that they've played at Celtic Park in the league so far, they've been entertained. 2 6-0 wins, Sean. Now, you said the other day, you can't guarantee a 6-0 win, but the Celtic supporters will be going there hoping that it can be 3 in a row in terms of 6-0s, or at least another convincing win.
As they should, to be honest. I mean, that's the two precedents that have been set. But no, I think yeah, we need to temper the kind of amount of goals they score expectations. But certainly, I don't think that's in out with the realms of possibility that they go and totally dominate the game. I think that's going to be expected. And I think me and Andy have mentioned on here a good few times that if Celtic score early, particularly at Parkhead, if Celtic get an early goal, I think all bets are off as to how many they could take off someone, because it's all well and good saying set up against a low block and get the inverted fullbacks to open that door and different things. But if Celtic score early and a team has to actually come out and try and get something from the game early on, that suits Celtic down to the ground for me. And I think that if that kind of thing happens, they're liable to take off a good few from anybody that does that, really.
And I look at the sellout, Sean, and you cannot underestimate the effect that Ange Postecoglou has had on the supporters and just that feel-good factor that he's brought in a very short space of time.
Definitely. I mean, we kind of touched on it yesterday about the progress that he's made in his first 3 months, which I think is tomorrow, the 10th. Already, those 3 months have brought tangible progress. You can see the way they're trying to play. So I expect that to continue on Saturday and for us to see more of that kind of philosophy being carried out on the pitch. What I would say is there's been an international break separating this game from the last one. But considering that the last one was a derby defeat, I think Ange will be under no guise that he wants an emphatic display as much as the goals as well. But the display, I think he'll want a dominant, emphatic one, regardless, knowing that the last game was a derby defeat. I think we're probably going to come on to it. I think you've mentioned it before, but the key part is no matter what the score is on Saturday, that they win and that it kickstarts a lengthy winning run domestically.
Yeah, I think it's how you react to adverse circumstances, Sean, isn't it? And, you touched on it there, that it was a derby defeat. You went into the back of the international break. You went into the international break on the back of that. So he'll want a response now, and he'll, as you said, he'll want an emphatic one. Now, I'm looking at the squad lists and I'm looking at players that could feature on Saturday, Sean. I'm not saying they all will, but Joe Hart, Liam Scales, Josip Juranovic, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Jota, Abada, Giacomakis, Kyogo, big question mark over Kyogo, Starfelt, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Kyogo, take him out, Starfelt 9. Well, that's maybe 8. Now, that to me is the stamp of an Ange Postecoglou team. And there's others on the other side. We've got Welsh, McGregor, Turnbull, Rogic, Forrest, Soro, and Ajeti. We are now seeing the swing, the pendulum swinging towards Ange Postecoglou's stamp all over the Celtic team now. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. I think it was always going to be the case when you've got 12 new summer signings to bed in and stuff, and all of the players that left, including big characters like Scott Brown, and then players that really suited Postecoglou, like Ryan Christie, even Ayer would have really suited this probably. So it was always going to be a quick turnaround in terms of personnel. But I think already he's shown that he will put players in if they look ready. Abada, we touched on him yesterday, only 19, he's already a regular. You don't want to put too much pressure on his shoulders given he is only 19, but he has done well so far. And you've got to think, I agree with you. I think this is an Ange team. You can't say right away that it's exactly what the finished article is going to be. Obviously, it's not. But in terms of personnel, it's certainly not the team from last season anymore.
Yeah. It's also an ideal game to maybe bed a few of those guys in that I mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers, if he's fit, Juranovic, Scales, Giakoumakis. You know, Giakoumakis might have to play a key role in this match if Kyogo is out for any length of time, which we're still waiting a definitive prognosis on that.
I'm sure whether that team in Saturday includes Kyogo or not, I'm sure. Well, we're not sure, but I'm certain Ange will be asked directly about that at the pre-match presser, and then we'll find out. But I think you're right. I think that could mean Giakoumakis comes straight in for a start. Whether he would have anyway is up for debate. He very well might have, but I think he definitely will if Kyogo's out. I mean, Ajeti could, but so far on the basis that it doesn't really seem to fancy him all that much. And the fact that Giakoumakis has come in as a new signing, took a number 7 shirt, wouldn't be surprised to see him go straight in. If you look at other ones, I mean, you mentioned there a few players. They are quite light in terms of, like, I see somebody in the comments here has mentioned about Kyogo's injury, but also Rogic, and I think I'll put it up. I think that is a good point about Rogic. He's just played 90 minutes for Australia and Vietnam yesterday, I think it was. A lot of travelling, got to come back, different things like that. Does he start? Does he start and then come off, or does he come on for the last 20 minutes? That kind of thing. Does that lead to McCarthy starting, possibly? The fact that we don't know if Forrest is ready to start on Saturday out wide, does that mean that Jota comes straight in for a debut? That could mean 2 of the front 3 are debutants, if that's the case, Jota and Giakoumakis, and then add an Abada to that, and it's a whole new front 3 in terms of the signings. So there's selection issues to be pondered there, I would say.
Decent headache to have though, Sean.
It is once everybody's fit, but in this occasion, obviously the worry is Kyogo. We just want to know if Kyogo's fit. That is a ripple effect then to the rest of the positions and stuff, I would say, because you could still start Giakoumakis and start Kyogo wide left.
Yeah.
If Jota's not quite ready and Forrest isn't fit enough yet, but you could easily maybe see Giakoumakis on the bench and Kyogo through the middle with Jota starting as well if Kyogo's fit. So I think a lot of it will come down to how fit Kyogo is when he comes back.
And he also might want to showcase Parkhead to these new signings. You know, a full house crowd, give them their debut in front of, 60,000. You know, that's something else for these players. They'll really enjoy that, and hopefully they can rise to that occasion. That might be in his thinking as well.
Aye, I've no doubt it will be, and I think it's one of those things you almost want to show off.
Yeah.
As a Celtic fan, you want to show the players that's the kind of thing you're going to be playing in front of, and I'm sure Ange will know that, and he'll want them to experience it as soon as possible. I mean, you've seen the way that Kyogo reacted when he scored his hat trick and he came out. He was absolutely buzzing. He loved it. And he seems like he will thrive on that. I've got one for you though in terms of team selection.
Go on.
I was saying there, and I realised when I was saying it, I'm missing somebody out. Someone who's not, he doesn't start, but he's been getting game time there, and he's been quite impressive. What if Kyogo is injured? You start Giakoumakis through the middle. Does Jota go straight in, or do you give Adam Montgomery the start at wide left?
Well, that's the quandary that the manager has, but the manager seems to like Adam Montgomery, and he's trusted him to play in some big occasions. He'll brought him on. He brought him on against Alkmaar, and he brought him on against Rangers. So, he clearly trusts him to do a job. And he clearly thinks that young Adam Montgomery's got talent. So again, that's down to the manager's call, and he'll have had the chance to work with them. I know I've touched upon this a few times, Sean, but I really do think, I've always said that managers see players on the training ground. They see their attitude, and they see if they're ready. They see if they can cope. They see if they think they can handle it. But it's all about attitude and application for me. And if Adam Montgomery has been shown that to the manager in the past few days since the Rangers defeat then he might well get a start, and that might be his reward for doing well in training. You know, a lot of managers base team selections and attitude and application in training, not just if he had a good game in the last one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so a lot of things come into their thinking, and I wouldn't rule it out. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think there's also, with Ange and the way that he sets his team out to play and stuff, there's also an element of how well will they carry out what I'm asking them to do as well. How well will they, or will they deviate at the drop of a hat kind of thing? Like, not to say they can't deviate, because he said himself, if there's a situation in the moment that they need to do something other than what the plan is, then they're fine to do it. But in terms of generally carrying out what he's wanting them to do and all that, I think that's why he likes Greg Taylor as much as he does, because he is the kind of player that, all right, he's got limitations. As much as I do like him, he's got limitations, but I think he's the kind of player that will go out and he will carry out what he's been told to do to the best of his ability, that kind of thing. But on Montgomery, I didn't think he'd shown much at left back when he'd come on in his albeit limited minutes. But that AZ game, I didn't think there was a doubt who was going to come on for Greg Taylor when he was injured. I think if you've been watching Celtic this season, it was never going to be ball and goalie. It was going to be Montgomery. And I think he'd done well. I do think he'd done well that night at left back. But I think he's shown a wee bit more when he's had his game time at left wing so far. But that versatility is going to be good for him. You might see him getting quite a lot of minutes if he can play both.
Yeah. Here's another comment, Sean. DM says, get Georgios starting, don't risk Kyogo. I'm erring towards that as well, because even if he does come back and it's not as bad as you first thought, he maybe just needs to, just time for whatever it is to heal properly. You wouldn't want to do him an injury setback that could put him out for a long time, because I'm reading somewhere he could be out for 2 weeks, he could be out to February. So the only two people that will know the truth are Ange and Kyogo, and we'll find that out in the fullness of time.
I think that comment's got merit. I think, as I say, I think a lot of the team lineup will depend on the condition of Kyogo, but I do think that's got merit. Not to disrespect Ross County, because they can be very difficult opponents, as Celtic have found out a couple of times over the years. But I do think that's got merit. I think that there is an element of, he says he's ready, presumably he'll say he's ready, but do you take it out of his hands and say, listen, actually, we're going to give you another couple of days, be ready for Thursday, that kind of thing?
When players say they're ready, Sean, I always think back to Big Effie.
Same. That's exactly who I was thinking on there.
Nick off the plane and said he was ready to go against Juventus, and within minutes Celtic had conceded and the tie was lost at Celtic Park that night. And I think a lot of Celtic supporters would cite that as the example of a player saying he's ready and when he's not. So sometimes players have to be protected from themselves, and also as well you protect the team. In those situations. And I'm sure Ange will know exactly what to do with Kyogo once he gets a full and proper prognosis. No, but I think there's, as we touched upon yesterday, there's a real kind of, I wouldn't say a swagger, but the Celtic fans are now enthusiastic about the games coming forward. And you said it there, they now have to string together that winning run, don't they? And get that winning mentality back into the team.
I think it's imperative. I think, as I say, the key part is not necessarily how many they score on Saturday, but just that they win and it's a good performance, and that it kickstarts it's really got to be a lengthy winning run. You can't really say a winning run and it's 3-4 games, because for Celtic I wouldn't say that's a massively impressive winning run, especially the last few years. So I think as long as it kickstarts a lengthy winning run domestically, I think that's going to be what's required in the months ahead after losing 2 your opening 4 league games, which we kind of touched on yesterday. The performance aspect, all right, they arguably should have won all 4 of them, but the fact that they didn't, 2 out of 4 so far, isn't good enough in terms of the results and only the results. So that lengthy winning run in the next few months is key.
Of the new signings, Sean, who are you most looking forward to seeing, or who intrigues you the most?
Of the deadline day signings, or just the deadline day signings, I think it's Jota probably, just because of the potential for a gem there that there is. The guy, I again don't want to keep referencing the guy's youth career, but you can't really underestimate how highly he was thought of, and he's just not really done it at senior level yet, due to a mix of the fact that it's Benfica guy wasn't getting that many opportunities. And then when he was playing for Valladolid in Spain, it wasn't necessarily a team that was going to be dominating the ball and stuff that might play to his strengths. So I'm really intrigued to see what he can do with a team that's going to give him the ball quite often during the game and and just some of the. I mean, he's obviously got something. He does have something. So
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
just intrigued. More
good here.
than anything else, I'm intrigued to see if I'm more than anything else. I'm intrigued to see if Ange can unlock it. Just to see that.
He's got good hair for a start,
Aye.
unlike myself. But no,
That's a bit for me to comment on here.
I didn't want to go there. Yeah, I think a lot of Celtic supporters are looking forward to seeing Jota, because it looks like that the two have come together at the right time. I think Jota could be great for Celtic, and Celtic could be great for him. As you say, if he wants to maybe take his career to the levels that people have said he would reach in the past, so come to Celtic and show what kind of player you are, and hopefully Celtic can reap the benefit of that in the next couple of seasons or more. He might actually like it and want to stay. If he turns it on, that's the platform he now has, and playing in front of 60,000 people every other week, is only going to benefit him, and players love that. I don't care what MD says. You'll go a long way to find a crowd like that, 60,000 every other week at your home games. You don't get that at many places.
Definitely not. I mean, some players just take to that to the extent that they really just don't want to go. Like, it's that kind of thing. I think everybody remembers Big Samaras saying it, like he would rather spend an extra couple of years at Celtic winning and playing in front of the fans than going down to a mid-table English team and not winning anything never again, all that kind of thing. And I think that holds true for a few players. Not all players. Some players just want to test themselves in a different league, a different level. But for some players, they come and they get it, and they want to give it up, basically.
That's the challenge, isn't it? go and enjoy it, and go and show everybody what you've got. Other people are saying they want to see how Cameron Carter-Vickers performs. He did very well at Southampton, Bournemouth last season, and the Bournemouth fans said they would have him back in a heartbeat. So you can only go with the people that have watched him regularly, and that's quite a glowing recommendation. They were actually asking on transfer deadline day, why aren't Bournemouth back in for him?
That does bode well. As I said to you yesterday, I don't see him starting on Saturday. I think he might have to wait a wee while. Obviously, he had an injury himself not long ago, middle of last month. I think it was an ankle injury, so that might play into the feelings as well. But I just think it'll be Welsh and Starfelt on Saturday, and barring any calamitous displays, that it'll probably be those two again in Thursday.
A lot of positivity as well with the Europa League group stages on the horizon as well, Sean. Tough start for Celtic going to Spain to play Real Betis away, but if they can get a wee head of steam up and get some confidence back, there's no reason to suggest that they can't go to Spain and get some kind of result.
I think the way that he's setting that team up this season, there's no, I'm not going to say no fear, but just the way that they're playing, they will look to score in every game. They're not going to go and try and sit back and say, right, try and beat us, mostly because I don't think they could do it. But I think every game, including the European games, will be tasty affairs in terms of they know that Celtic are going to go for a goal. So some games will depend on who scores first. As I've said, if Celtic score first in a lot of games, it might play into their hands, but that's more against the smaller teams that are going to sit deep. With a European group, I think there's a potential for all sorts of madness in that group. It's I says when the draw come out, that's going to be enjoyable one way or the other, and I think that's going to be the case.
I think the away games will hold the key to Celtic's progression or not, if I'm perfectly honest, Sean, because I think they can be more than a match for all of those teams at home, and I would certainly think that they might look to pick up maximum points at home. Granted, I know Leverkusen are a decent side, but it's the away for them, and we've touched on this, that Celtic need to address both domestically and in Europe.
I think so. I think you've got a point. I think it's the same every season with Celtic in Europe. You think, well, at home we can do a job against everybody, but whether it actually comes out that way or not is different. But you still think a home crowd, Parkhead, European night, there's no reason it can't happen. Away games is always a different kettle of fish. It's kind of hands in your seat kind of thing. But but you never know. That am I right in saying that there's going to be away fans at the Betis game and the Leverkusen games? Is that right?
Yeah.
They've been confirmed. I can't remember if the Ferencváros one's been confirmed, but But away fans they could play a role. Small band as it will be, they could play a role. The general atmosphere, it does influence things.
Well, we'll leave it on that note. We'll leave it a positive note, Sean. And as you can see across the bottom, you can subscribe to the Celtic Way for $2.99 for top quality journalism covering the club that you love. That's $2.99 a month for the first 2 months. As I say, this has been the Morning Briefing Live. I've been Tony Haggerty. That's been Sean Martin. Thanks again for your contribution, Sean.
Cheers, Tony.